Welcome to the Burning Archive. I'm Jeff Rich, and this is a channel about history and how a little bit of history can help you in your life, especially when you're trying to make sense of the big events of geopolitics. And while there are some big events of geopolitics going on at the moment with rising tension between China and the United States of America. America has shot down Chinese balloons, and there's increasing rhetoric from all sides. And a focal point of the conflict is Taiwan, but Taiwan is not the only issue at play. There's economic issues to do with trade and competition between those two large powers. There's military issues to do with America's surrounding China in the Western Pacific. There's diplomatic issues about what is the shape of the new world order of global governance in the world. And there's also cultural issues and clashes between, Western ways of seeing things and Chinese ways of seeing things. And all of these are issues that are better understood with a little bit of history. And reading a little bit of history is something that you can do. You don't have to get sucked into the war propaganda of either side, the growing rhetoric of either side. You can grab back some power and make up your own mind. And I'm going to offer you in this video 7 insights from 7 historians that can help you do just that. And perhaps if we all do that, all us citizens of the world, perhaps we can help find a path to peace and not World War III. So 7 insights from 7 historians and 7 books. The escalating tensions between China and the United States are a real concern for many of us all around the world. And the 7 insights that I'm going to offer you from 7 historians are from Rana Mitter, an English historian, Odd Arne Westad, a Norwegian-American historian, Dr. S.J. Shankar, the Indian Foreign Minister, Hugh White, an Australian historian and military strategist, Timothy Brook, a Canadian historian, and Klaus Muhlhahn, a German historian. I would love to have a deeper knowledge of some Chinese historians who could contribute to this insight, and maybe some viewers on the channel can leave us a comment and suggest some that I might watch. And I should also say that this video is a response to a viewer question on the channel who asked, what are some books that, given the escalating rhetoric that's going on around the world, or in terms of conflict between the United States and China, what are some books that can help us make sense of all of this? So if you do want to ask me something or get me to address a topic or a book on the channel, leave us a comment below, and I promise you I will follow up. I've got a big reading list to do, but I'll definitely get to it. The 7 insights from these 7 historians, I am going to introduce each of them to you. But first, just let me say a little bit about why it is so important to take a calm, mindful approach to history at this time of world crisis and talk of World War III. So there's increasing rhetoric about war, particularly I think in American leadership circles, media circles. There's increasing speculation about war. Some American generals have said in their gut they expect there to be a war over Taiwan by 2025 or 2027. The head of the CIA has said that that may well be the case too. There's wargaming and planning and preparations over a war between the United States and China in Taiwan. And, well, I don't want that. I'm sure probably you don't want that. And I think most of the world does not want that either. Taiwan is not even, a recognized nation state from almost all of the countries around the world. They nearly all recognize China's one China policy, including the United States, Australia, where I live, and even though there are visits to Taiwan and aspects of Taiwan that people admire, there is an acknowledgement that it is part of China, and in a way it's a kind of unique sort of setup. But there is this growing sense, I think, that many in the American elite feel that their window to have a successful war against China around Taiwan may be closing, with growing strength of the Chinese military and challenges for America. But the idea that we would risk a major war, potentially a nuclear war, one in which my country, Australia, seems to be almost spoiling for a fight and may well end up being targeted. The fact that we might risk that over an argument related to a territory of Taiwan that all countries acknowledge is part of China now is almost unconscionable. And it's a huge debate in Australia. We've got big economic ties, big people ties with China, and have so really since the 19th century. Yet our military ally is the United States of America, and so often the path to success for people like Rupert Murdoch and many other of the influential businesses and political leaders, Kevin Rudd even, around Australia, is to ingratiate themselves with American power. This has drawn us into escalating tensions with China, especially as over the last few years in America and in the European NATO countries, there has been an increasingly aggressive attitude towards China, a growing sense of preparing the battleground for war, as indeed one senior American military leader actually described what America was doing. We've had some pretty shrill articles in the Australian press, and we've also been ridiculed a little bit in the Chinese press. So it's a real issue here, and people within Australia like a form... No. And people in Australia, like a former Australian ambassador to China, have expressed deep regret about the way Australia has gone over the last few years. Certainly in Australia, but also worldwide, really. We perhaps need to deflate this balloon of the dispute between the United States and China. Don't float the balloons, don't shoot down the balloons, but let's deflate the balloons of war and aggression between the United States and China. And we need to see the conflict for what it is and not just another crusade for democracy versus authoritarianism, or another crusade against American hegemonic domination of the world. This is very much a dispute around real, very substantial matters. What is the ongoing role of the American military domination, you could say occupation of the Western Pacific, bases in Japan, bases in the Philippines, bases in Guam, all surrounding China? What is the future of the economic domination or the economic competition and the different strengths and weaknesses of the American and the Chinese economies? And what is the future of the political institutions in the world, which perhaps don't give some countries like China, like India, the same level of status that they really deserve in a growing, developing, multipolar world? It still is not 1945 and America does not dominate the world. Reading a bit of history can help us deflate this bubble. The former Australian Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, has written a book called Avoiding a War with China. And that surely is what we should do. We don't need to be grand strategists to do that. We need to think a little bit about the stories we tell ourselves about history, the stories we tell ourselves about other cultures and other civilizations and other people's experiences of history, and find a balance of our various interests. We all need to avoid a war with China, leaders and citizens, and we need to refuse to be lulled into a propaganda war against China in the way that over the last decade, really, the American political media, military class particularly, have prepared the battleground for war with Russia. We certainly do not need another one of those. So we need to reframe this dispute with a little bit of good history. Because we may not be able to control our leaders. We may not be able to control some of the wilder Dr. Strangeloves of the American leadership group, like John Bolton or Victoria Nuland. But we can all control our minds. We can all control the stories we tell ourselves about other nations, other histories, and we can all exercise some mindful awareness about the histories we tell ourselves. And many American leadership groups, intellectuals, political types, at the moment are really buying into some histrionic and distorted histories of China. They tend to redefine China as the evil CCP. It's Ronald Reagan's evil empire all over again. And it wasn't really until Ronald Reagan recognized that the Soviet Union was a negotiable partner rather than an evil empire that all the great achievements of disarmament that Reagan and Gorbachev together achieved were achieved. You know, Steve Bannon is an example of this. There are many examples, both in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party, of this. And it seems to be really become almost de rigueur at the moment, also a matter of national pride, that there should be such an anti-Chinese attitude. And, you know, I guess this has been shown in the recent ballooning incident, where the balloon was shot down perhaps partly in response to a sort of sense of embarrassment that a balloon could fly over American waters, American the American. And there's also a lot of talk about extremely aggressive plans from the leadership elite in China, American ideas like a 100-year marathon that, you know, the Chinese leadership is determined to replace American domination of the world with Chinese domination of the world, and they have a, you know, long constructed 100-year plan to do so by 2049. These things tend to be bad history and encourage paranoid policies. We badly need better insights and a more compassionate understanding of the history of China. We need more nuance, more mindful history, more detached awareness of what is really happening, not histrionic, angry outbursts.
But make no mistake about it, as we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did. Look, let's be clear. Winning the competition should unite all of us. We face serious challenges across the world. But in the past 2 years, democracies have become stronger, not weaker. Autocracy has grown weaker, not stronger. Name me a world leader who changed places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one.
But of course, for the ordinary viewer like you, like me, of all these events and things, how do we? The history of China is enormous. A lot of it's been told by Western historians with lots of distortions. It's an enormously large place, complex place, extraordinary scale of achievement, and clearly also a language which is difficult for many Westerners to access. So where is the intelligent citizen on YouTube going to start? Wherever you live in the world, whether that's America, whether that's China, India, or Australia, or Europe, we all can perhaps make a start on finding a more sensible understanding of the history of China. So look, it's a huge issue, it's a huge literature, and I'm no expert in it, but I am curious about it, just like you, I suppose. That's why you're watching the video. So where can a curious, open-minded, open-hearted reader interested in, understanding what's going on in the world and avoiding war, where can they start with the history of China? So I'm going to talk to you briefly about 7 books or 7 articles that I've read that offer 7 insights from 7 historians, loosely understood historians, that have helped my understanding of China and might help you reframe your thinking about Chinese history and the dispute between China and the United States of America. I've tried to stick to books that I've read and avoid, the usual suspects. There are some great histories of China. There's Jonathan Spence and Michael Wood and lots of those kind of things. And there are a lot of potboilers, that sort of thing out there as well. But I tried to steer away from those and focus on things that I think would offer, genuine, unique insight to you. And I've only included, serious works, not sort of the works by ex-intelligence people, not sort of fear-mongering, war porn, that kind of stuff that often gets spewed out from the sort of American political circles, perhaps more commonly. especially in the years since the rise of Donald Trump and his advocacy of a more aggressive policy towards China. China. I'd love to read your comments on these suggestions and also any good YouTube channels out there on history of China, because that can also be a great resource, but I'm not trying to cover that in this video. And given this is going to be an issue, I'm sure we'll be talking about the rivalry between the United States and China for several years, hopefully not too catastrophically so. We can all learn together a little bit on this channel and practice a little bit of mindful history together. 7 insights from those 7 historians: Orane Westad, Rana Mitter, Linda Javen, Timothy Brooke, Klaus Muhan, Hugh White, and Dr. S. Jaishankar, the Indian Foreign Minister. They all offer a unique insight, I think. So what I'm going to do is actually break up the video a little bit and have this sort of introductory overview to those 7 insights first, and then I'm going to bring out a part 2, part 3, and a part 4 to cover the 7 videos, my little discussions of those 7 videos, so that they're small and manageable for you as a YouTube viewer, so you can just take them in bite-sized bits. So you can sort of really focus in on just that one thing at a time and hopefully learn to have a bit more of a mindful approach to history as it relates to China and the United States, and that we can all find our way to world peace. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in one of those next videos.